The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Light Consciousness Grace presents the Lemurian Codex Healing Modality Practitioner's Course, Part 1, hosted by Not Mark. Now I'd like to welcome everybody back to today's webinar, Part 2 of 3. Now before we start, I was giving some guidance on yesterday's technical difficulties, so to speak, on the audio quality of my voice tending to fade in and out. Now, on my side of the picture, when I was listening to everyone's questions, especially during the first half of the webinar, it seemed that even your questions themselves for my listening was tending to go in and out. So I didn't quite catch everyone's questions either. Now, the intuition that I got on this was that the reason why this sound quality was going down and people couldn't hear me was because the universe or source or God didn't want you to hear me. The universe, source, God wanted you to listen. And there's a difference. When one is hearing, one hears all kinds of different noises, different sounds, different conversations. But one may not necessarily be paying attention to or aware of or paying conscious awareness to it. When one is listening, one is directing their conscious awareness to the speaker or the source of that particular sound. So yesterday, the universe wanted everybody to just pay particular attention not only to what was being said, but how they themselves were listening to it. And when all that was revealed to me at the end of the webinar, I said, cool, this is very cool. That's really an instance of that now moment playing into these webinars again. And with that said, we'll move on. As it is said, the truth is paradox, and mind's quest for it is hampered by the fiction it assumes as real. Now, with that quote resonating throughout your frequencies of being, we'll start the day off with today's what I call Nova. It is both insight and intuition, and we'll just take a few seconds or so to let that sink in. Okay, now we're ready to begin today's webinar. The first half of the webinar we will be dealing with scripts, karma, and determinism. Now, the first quote I have is from Albert Einstein. Everything is determined by forces over which we have no control. It is determined for the insect as well as for the star. Human beings, vegetables, or cosmic dust, we all dance to the mysterious tune, intoned in the distance by an invisible piper. Now, as you can see from this particular quote, Einstein is a believer in determinism, meaning that the human condition itself is already scripted. But at the very end of the quote itself, gives us a glimpse into his understanding of the universe. Though everything is determined, there is still someone else or some higher power that is causing the dance to happen. And he calls it the invisible piper. Now remember that, because we're going to come back to it later within the seminar, or I should say webinar. Now, if my voice tends to fade out at any time during today's webinar, please raise your hand and let me know so I can check and make any adjustments that I need to. Now with that, let's move on to the next screen. Now this is a quote by Sri Ramana Mahari. He is considered the enlightened sage of our time. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen, try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen, do what you may to prevent it. This is certain. Everything is predetermined. Now this is a compilations of two different quotes that Ramana had made. The first part of the quote was to the question of his mother when she wanted Ramana to come home. And his response was exactly that. His form was following its fate, its destiny, its karma, its script. And try as she may, or try as she might, there was no way that she was going to be able to change it. The second part of the quote, everything is predetermined, was an answer he gave to a questioner who had asked, is karma or destiny, does that only cover one's career or one's important decisions in life, or does it cover everything, including when to pour a cup of tea and drink it? And Ramana's answer to this was, everything is predetermined. Now the usage of this, when understood correctly, will bring you great, great, great freedom. And I'll explain that through the use of some of my experiences. Now, before I moved to my present location, the old home that I was in, that I worked out of and had my crystal store in, had a driveway off of the main highway that was quite dangerous to turn into. And the driveway itself was very, very tight and very hard to turn around in. So when customers would come into the driveway, I would always help them to turn around when it was time for them to leave. And my helping them was to stand behind their cars and to guide them as they were backing up to turn around. Now, as people were watching this happen, the comment that was always made was that, "Mark, you're going to be run over." And what I would always tell them with a smile on my face was, if you're supposed to run me over, there's nothing I can do about it. If you're not supposed to run me over, there's no way you can. And they would scratch their heads a little bit, not quite understanding what that means. And I would just laugh. And I never got run over. Now, one of the funnier points of this is, at one point somebody told me, after I'd made that statement, that, "Mark, that's just fatalistic thinking." And instantaneously, without any thought whatsoever, in the now of the moment, the reply came. I said, "Yes, but life is fatal," and laughed. Again, leaving that person scratching their head. But within this script, within the karma of form, when you know completely that things are happening exactly the way they're supposed to happen, there is complete freedom to be. Now, if there are any questions at any time during this discussion, please raise your hand and I'll get to you. Or if intuition guides me to click on your microphone, I will. Okay, let's move on. This is a quote from the Buddha. "I am the owner of my karma. I inherit my karma. I am born of my karma. I am related to my karma. I live supported by my karma. Whatever karma I create, whether good or bad, that I shall inherit." Now, this is probably as close as you're going to get within the sayings of Buddha and Buddhism itself on determinism. But when you read this, understand that he is saying the I am is not the I am of who you truly are. It is the I am of physical form. And when you read it that way, it changes the frequency of the whole script that he has written out. The physical form is the owner of karma. The physical form inherits its karma from past physical form incarnations. The physical form is born of its karma. The physical form is related to its karma in an intertwined way. The very foundation of the physical form is karma. And whatever karma the physical form creates in its current life stream it shall inherit in its next rebirth. And that's one of the interpretations of this particular quote. Now, we've bounced around from several different philosophies or ways of thinking, from Western to Indian to the Far East. And as you look further and further into this, you will see that this script, this karma, this determinism is pervasive throughout the ages. Much of the ideas and problems with this arise because one thinks that they are trapped within it, which is not the case whatsoever. And part of what the codices do is to give you the keys of opening the doors to your inherent freedom. Now, before we go any further, I'll check again for any questions. Good morning, Mary, or good afternoon, Mary. Your mic is now open. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Mark. My question is that it seems as though unless I'm living in the moment of now, I'm always creating karma. Yes?
In actuality, you are always living in the moment of now. Who you think you are isn't. And who you think you are is the one that's creating karma. Which I know is very, very paradoxical in nature, but that's how this whole system is.
The reason why I'm asking is I was thinking, well, is there a way not to keep creating karma?
Exactly.
But I think even if you're enlightened, you're still going to be living through karma that's already been put out there?
Even the enlightened person, including Buddha, when he became enlightened, he was at the age of 35. His physical form itself still had, and because of it, that it is karma, had another, I think it was 30 years to go, so to speak. But as a free, enlightened person, he could have chosen to let go of the form at any time. But as who he truly is, he chose to continue the form, and in the freedom of his choices as an enlightened being, to pass that energy field of enlightenment to everyone around him. So when we talk about awakening or enlightenment or any of those things, when one is awakened, there's no longer the idea of an I-ego self. And when the I-ego self is dropped, when that idea falls away, so does the engine that creates karma.
Okay.
So does that make a little bit more sense, Mary?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine that dropped completely has noticed that he really, really doesn't have any karma whatsoever, but his form has all kinds of karma with all the people around him, that there's all these different things that he needs, or his form needs to do with them. And between the time that he is called to appear on their stage, he's completely free to do whatever he feels like doing, because nothing affects who he truly is. His karma is completely gone. The form still has karma, but that's just the playing of the tape itself, the playing of the parts in everyone's script around him that he has a part to play in. And one of the favorite sayings that he uses all the time now, when asked, or can I make when can we get together, when can we have some time to see each other? And he'll tell not just myself, but others, well, if I'm supposed to be there, I'll be there. If not, then I won't be there. And that's true. Yes, Mary, I see that your hand is up again. You have another question.
I didn't, but it must have gone up. Then I guess, what was my question going to be? How can I phrase it? It's escaped me, but it had to do with the scripting of the. I'm still a little confused about the scripting with the karma. And, I know. My question was about awareness. So if you become a little bit more aware, is that still part of the script and part of the karma?
Depending on what do you mean by a little bit more aware?
Well, it's like you can, when I feel the older Mary, the one that used to be around, would just go around and say things and not be aware of the consequences of her voice or actions. And now I'm more aware of, wow, after those words come out of my mouth, the impact that they're having on other people.
But are there
the impact that other people are having on me.
The question is now, if you look at what you're saying, I'm going to turn your mic off for a second, the impact you say that you have on other people by your words. The universe's question back to you is, are they your words? Or are you playing the part that you signed up to play for that particular person to speak that words back to them so that they may awaken? I just turned your mic on. Do you see what I'm trying to convey to you, Mary?
Yes, because I think what's happening is words are coming out of my mouth and I don't know where they're always coming from.
They're always coming from the script. Unless you're completely awakened and know that it's no longer you talking and don't even try to talk anymore.
Wouldn't that be impossible if it's part of the script to talk?
If it's part of the script for you to say something, you will say something, regardless of what it is you're supposed to say. If you're not supposed to say anything, you won't. That's the script part. The part of you that is, I should say, who you truly are, is beyond the scripts. And will play the scripts out, but can also do much, 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 much more.
Okay.
And we'll see how that works as we continue on in today's webinar.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mary. Good morning, Ellen. I see your hand is up. Go ahead. Your mic is on.
Oh, I have a hard time with scripts. So when I hear the word script, I think of something like a screenplay, characters. And can you talk a little bit about the origin of the script? Like, everybody seems to have a different script, and you said it was written a long time ago. So did I write it with the intention of furthering soul growth, and this is what I needed to do in order to, I don't know.
Good question, Ellen. Actually, we're going to be diving into that particular question just a little bit further into today's webinar. So your answers to that question, and this is part of the new information that everyone requested, and that's why I put together a brand new seminar on the codices so that these questions could be answered in a way and format that would be much more digestible to everyone involved. Now, I use the term digestible because it's important to know that you're not going to know this. This is something that you're going to absorb into the information stream or karmic stream of your physical form itself, which will ignite different parts of the frequencies of who you truly are. So if you be patient for just a little while longer, Ellen, we should take care of you. Does that sound okay to you?
Yes, I'm waiting with bated breath.
Okay, Ellen. Now, if anybody else has a question, please raise your hand, and I'll get to you. Otherwise, we'll go on to the next slide. Now, we've touched upon the philosophical side of the question of scripts, karma, and determinism. Let's see what science has to tell us. Now, as you are looking at this particular slide, Dorothy, I see that your hand is up. If it's a real question, just flash it on and off for me. Otherwise, okay, it's a real question. Dorothy, your microphone is on. Go ahead.
I think my hand is working today. It's more a comment, I guess, than a question just before we move on,
Okay.
which I'm sure you're going to answer. But I almost feel like, what is my physical form like a robot programmed beforehand by who I really am? And if this goes on over the lifetimes, do we advance over several lifetimes? And the reason I ask it is I'm quite confused because, as you know, I give positive thinking seminars and teach people your thoughts create your reality and how they can change their lives. So if their lives are already predetermined, is it, I guess I am scripted to help them bridge over to who they really are. Because sometimes I'm thinking, is it a waste of time what I'm doing? Am I doing something right? Because I see so many people have changed their lives. But so is it predetermined that I am to be with them to help them, to change certain facets, and then the predetermination will come in?
Very good question. The short answer is yes, these things are scripted to happen. The changes in their lifetime, though the appearance changes are scripted within the plays of their lifetimes, and the parts that you are playing and helping them is also scripted. But, and we'll get to this in a little bit on the next couple of slides, there is the possibilities of choice within the determinism or the karma within the person. It's just that the idea of who they think they are cannot make changes to the script that is already playing out, because that idea has already happened. Or I should say, before that idea of change ever comes into the conscious awareness, the change itself has already happened. Now, this particular slide that we're going to be going through will give you a perfect example of what I'm trying to illuminate before you all. So let's go through this slide first, Dorothy, and then we'll come right back to your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Ellen, your hand was up. Your mic is now open.
Please address also whether I was once told that we had choice about our scripts, like being able to walk. I mean, this is a crazy analogy, but being able to like walk into a library and say, "I'll take that one," out of a choice of so. Please address that too later.
Yeah, we'll be addressing all of it today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Dorothy, I think your computer's playing with me again. I see your hands up. You turn it on and off for me. If you truly wish to have a comment or question, I'll answer it. If not, we'll continue on. Okay. Now, this this next slide that we're looking at is the result of a test that a professor, his name was Benjamin Libet, from the University of California, San Francisco, that was done in 1983. Now, what the professor wanted to test was how long does it take for a conscious thought to become action within the physical form. And in order to measure this, he had volunteer students hooked up to both an encephalograph that was specifically targeted at certain areas within the brain that controls motor functions, and he also had the wrist muscles of each person wired up so that the initiation of movement was recorded instantaneously. Now, the test subjects were put in a room and were told to randomly move one or the other wrist and to mark the time that they chose to move that wrist. Now, when the testing was done, what they found, not only threw the professor for a huge loop, but it's also through the psychological world for a huge loop. Because what he had recorded was that the brain had initiated movement before the participant was even aware of it, by a large factor. Now, through the recordings of the encephalograph and the recordings on the wrists of the subjects, this is what happened. As you can see from the last line, I have MIB 350 milliseconds, CIA 200 milliseconds, and SH. Now, God is a very, very, very big comedian. And he chose those letters on purpose. And I shall make them clearly abundant to you his humor involved. Now the first acronym, MIB, this is what is the movement initiated in the brain. And this is recorded on the encephalograph. And it was such that they would know, depending on how the signal was generated, which wrist was going to be moved. Now, between the recording of the brain moving the signals of which wrist is being moved and the subject having a cognitive intellectual awareness of it, there was a time frame of 350 milliseconds. Now, millisecond is 1/1000 of a second. So 350 is a little over a third of a second. The movement appeared in the brain before any of the subjects were ever conscious of it, even though they believe that they had made a choice of which wrist to move. And between the subjects being consciously aware of choosing a wrist to move, there's another time span of another 200 milliseconds before SH or something happens. Now, as you can see, this clearly throws a wrench into the idea of choice. Because our cognitive intelligent awareness, even though it's saying it's made a choice of which wrist to move, the actual movement itself that begins within the brain started way before you were ever aware of it. Now, in the reading that and the acronyms that were written down on this, Source said, or God said, MIB, the initiators of the movement, he jokingly referred to them as the men in black, the unseen forces of karma and determinism, which just had me laughing my head off completely. And they initiated the movement before the CIA, or Central Intelligence Agency, which really knows nothing. It knows everything after the fact, and we all know that. Or the CIA of your awareness. And after that, 200 milliseconds pass again, and S happens, whatever that S is. Now, as we can see from just this little experiment, which after the testing was completely done, it was never redone because nobody likes to see that they are not truly making choices. That the choices have been made before, even at the level of our brain waves themselves. The choices were made before there was any cognitive awareness of them. And the same goes for all of the scripts, karma, and determinism within the life stream of all the people and events here. Now, all of those things are happening. Our awareness, and what I mean by awareness, I mean the I, ego, self that we think we are, is only picking up the after event or record of the event itself. The event happened. And that's what I mean by when we talk of script, karma, and determinism. The I, ego, self, outside of the now, does not have an awareness of that freedom of choice that is there. It does not have an awareness of what is truly going on other than what has already happened. it got to the point that during the experiment, because computer systems are faster than our cognitive awareness, that he set up a computer screen within the room. And as soon as the brainwave signal came through of which wrist was going to be moved, on the screen flashed, turn your right wrist or turn your left wrist. And the students would be watching this happening going, that just told me to do something. And they watched their wrists start moving within those split seconds, going, either this is mind control or somehow or another they're reading my mind. And how can the computer read my mind when I'm not even aware of what my choice would be? And now you can see why the psychological world was all thrown upside down also. Now for you, Dorothy, in particular, and what you practice and teach people about changing their thoughts and changing their lifestyles, there are several different levels of that. And right now we're only looking at one of them. And the surface level of it is all scripted. It is all karma. It is all determined. But you got to remember, you're only looking at the surface. There is an undercurrent in streams of information and movement that is also going on at the same time. And those undercurrent streams and movements will be going into a few more, and I think it's actually the next slide that we get into. So on the surface of all of this, as we are told both religiously and philosophically and now scientifically, it appears that scripts, karma, and determinism are the surface conditions of how we interact and react within reality as the I, ego, self knows it. As I've said many, many times to people, who you think you are has no choice. Who you truly are is beyond it. Now I'm going to open the microphone for questions, because this is a very fun field to be playing in. So Dorothy, your microphone is on. How would you like to play with this?
Oh, this is more fun than a sandbox. Well, something happened today that may help me to understand what's going on with me and my other self, whatever, the program self, the robot, as I call me. I was helping an acquaintance clean out her apartment. I don't know her very well. And I got over there, and it was like, oh my God, this is like a hoarder. And it was a terrible situation to walk into. And as I walked in, I thought, what am I doing here? I mean, okay, well, she's a lovely young girl. She needs help. And I looked around, scratched my head, and said, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be of service today. So let's just get at it and get rid of the judgment, because the judgment is that robot person, and let's just do what has to be done. And I did it, and I found myself at the end of the day, well, just before the seminar, saying, I think you need more help. I'll come back tomorrow and help you finish up, and we'll get this move finished. And we gave each other a hug, and I walked away, and I, driving home, I said, what just happened? What the hell just happened? Why was I brought into this, and why did I do it? Well, shows me another way of how some people live, I guess.
Well, not just that. You're playing out your part within her script. You had no choice.
Well, it's a good thing I ended up being happy about it, isn't it?
That's one of the freedoms that you truly do have. You can choose in that moment of service to all of the other scripts that you're in on how that affects your field and consciousness. You can do it in grace, you can do it in joy, or you can do it in what we would consider the negative emotions. But it's still going to be done.
Right, right.
And there's a lot more fun doing it in joy.
Well, I didn't carry out the garbage. I made her do that.
Well, that was her script. She had to do it. She had no choice. You cannot... What's that?
Well, I am starting to understand this with each thing that I do, each experience that comes to me is making me, I don't want to say aware. It's like there's two of me now.
There's a Mary, there's a Dorothy and a not Dorothy.
And a maybe Dorothy, there might be three.
It could be. We have the ability to be so much more than what we think or what we believe. There's abilities beyond everything of the scripts that we are experiencing, especially when we get into what we're talking about with the codexes.
And Mark, are you saying from this test that was done by Benjamin Libet, are you saying, or is he saying, or is the universe telling us that our thoughts are predetermined, like our brain is initiating the thought before we actually have the thought?
The brain is initiating the events themselves, or the events themselves are initiated before we are ever aware of them. So the brain as the mechanism of recording, the brain as a mechanism of what you would call consciousness itself or awareness, is picking up things before the idea of who we think we are ever picks it up.
So then the brain must be connected to who we really are.
The brain is who we really are in an aspect of the way that it works. It's just that our belief systems in the idea of the I-ego self is working on the recordings of things that have already happened. And that's why I say that the idea of the I-ego self has no choice, because the choice has already been made before it is ever aware of it.
This really helps with our attitude, doesn't it? It could change our whole attitude about whatever's going on in our life.
It changes everything when you understand it completely.
It's amazing.
It just goes, oh, well, that's supposed to happen. It's already happened, in fact, and I'm just now only aware of it. Unless you're in the now moment of who you truly are. And that now moment of who you truly are experiences everything instantaneously because it's all happening right then and there. As I say, the cognitive awareness of who you think you are is always outside of the now. So as you are believing the ideas of your thoughts themselves, those thoughts too have already happened. It's only within a minimum 350 milliseconds ago it happened before you're even aware of the thought itself. Which is just mind-blowing when you start to look at this.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because my mind is just about blown.
Well, that's what we're here for today.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Dorothy. I see your hand up is Mary, so let me go ahead and get your mic turned on. Okay, Mary, your mic is now turned on. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, my comment with the last thing with Dorothy had said was just very fascinating. But I have another question, actually, before I lose my mind, with you leaving me. A friend of mine who's a healer had made a comment several years ago, and it deals with the connection of karma and events. And the way we were describing it, we were talking about it, was if we're looking, if our soul or the karma to experience, in this case we're talking about a love relationship or something, some aspect of a relationship. And his comment to me was, look up in the sky and see the stars. As many stars as you can see, those are the different choices that you have it doesn't really matter which one. So I took that to say it didn't really matter which event occurred, whether it was man A or man B or man C or man D, whatever one came, whatever event, whatever path seemed to be chosen, it didn't really matter because whatever I was trying to experience through karma would have been the same regardless of the person. Wanted you to comment on that. Yes? No? Is that a wrong interpretation?
Well, on that particular one, let's see, short answer is it really didn't matter because there was no choice in the matter itself, depending on your perceived view of the event itself. The longer answer being when you given the choice of it didn't matter which man she chose, involves the idea of who you truly are, and that the choices that you seem to be making really don't exist at all because you've chosen all of it. And as he was saying, your choices are as vast as the night sky, and it's true. But the idea is you have chosen all of it. So every single path, no matter what path you feel that, or what man that you've chosen, the awareness and choice itself has already been made. And it didn't matter which guy she chose. She's going to choose the one she's going to choose the one.
And that would be the one you're experiencing.
And then that's the one that particular I-ego self will be experiencing. But in actuality, and this is going much, much deeper into the scripts, karma, and determinism, which we're coming up to, that the question that you're asking, did she have a choice between man A, B, C, or D? The answer is no, she chose all of them. That's the long answer, which has much more meaning into it. But the short answer is she didn't have a choice, which is the paradox of the I-ego self versus who you truly are. And both are happening at exactly the same time in the now. It's just that who you really are has all the choices. Who you think you are only sees one of them.
Yeah, I think I am. Okay. And that who I think I am person always seems to be just a few seconds behind the 8 ball when it comes to what's being experienced.
Exactly. You're not aware of it. Even if we're making choices, conscious choices on choosing even the simplest things as moving your wrist, you're aware of it as something of an event that has already happened, which totally blows everything out of the water. But who you really are is the event itself happening and unfolding.
Really don't have control of anything, do we?
Not the illusion, no. The I-ego self does not have control over any of it, because the events themselves have already happened for the I-ego self. But who you truly are has complete control over all of it, because it is all of it. It is the event itself. Does that kind of put the perspective into what your friend says a little more clearly, I think, I hope?
Yes, and just the last piece you said about you being able to change it, who you really are can change it. So let's go back to the easy example of moving the wrist. So if you're not conscious, or the ego self is moving the wrist, you don't really have control, but the I am could say, well, I'm going to move both wrists at the same time?
The I am can do anything. If you hook a certain person into these kinds of machines, such as an enlightened aware person who's not there, my prediction is, or as the source tells me and intuition tells me, that there's not going to be that CIA in the center of the whole measurement. There's going to be a movement within the brain and then a movement. But there's not going to be a cognitive awareness of it because it doesn't matter. There's no cognitive awareness of it. It just is.
But I was thinking, see, there's that thinking.
Yes, that's about 350 milliseconds before. It happened already, and now you're hearing the thought. It's like that time difference when we're on a very, very long distance call. I'll say something, and about a year later you hear it.
So where does awareness fit into all this then?
Depends on whose awareness are you talking about. Is it the I, ego, self?
The I am.
The I am is awareness.
So there doesn't have to be that gap in the brain.
There is no gap in I am. There is no gap in the now moment. That now moment has no time frame to work with. The only time you can measure time frames is within the illusion of the I, ego, self.
Okay.
But within the now moment, there's no way to measure time because it doesn't exist truly.
Okay.
To give you an example of the now moment and the flexibility of time itself. When I was growing up as a boy, my dad would always mow the lawn. That was his pride and joy. Every weekend, mow the lawn. And being that children like to emulate their dads, especially boys, I grew up, mowing the lawn also. Now, my dad would never use a grass catcher. He would just, if it got clogged, he'd stick his hand in there and pull it out. And he'd always tell us, never do that. But the monkey nature that we are, we tend to copy what we see, especially when we're children. So this happened when I was, I think, 15 or 16. And I was mowing the lawn, and the chute got clogged with grass. And I went and stuck my hand in there to move the grass out so the lawnmower would start running again. Now, as I stuck my finger in there to move the grass, the blade of the lawnmower went through my fingertip. And time stopped. Completely. And all I could hear in my mind was the roar of silence, the roar of the lawnmower, and the immediate thought was, the blade just went through my finger. I need to get my hand out of there. Why am I not moving? What is going on? Come on, move, hand, move. And this is playing over and over and over in my head to get my hand to move out of the chute. And after what feels like a minute or two, I feel the blade go through my fingertip again. Now, the blade has made one complete revolution. And I'm still thinking to myself, what the heck is going on? Get your hand out of there. Move it, move it, move it. Why am I not moving? Why is everything not moving? What is going on? Just move your hand out of there. And as all these hundreds and hundreds of thoughts are happening in extremely fast motion, super, super speed up, like water falling over a tall waterfall. All the drops of it's falling down. Move, 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 move. The blade goes through my fingertip one more time. And about another year or two later, it seemed, I finally move my hand and get it out of the chute of the lawnmower. And everything falls back into regular time. Now, the blade of the lawnmower itself is spinning at such a high revolution. I think it's like 200 or 300 revolutions per minute. And that comes out to a lot per second. And yet the 1.5 turns of that blade that I experienced in the now moment, which seemed to have no time whatsoever, took forever. And that's what I mean by being completely in the now moment. I was experiencing that now moment completely. And the time of it stretched out completely. And you hear of this happening to people that play sports, how that now moment, I remember Michael Jordan saying that when he was totally in the zone, he would shoot the basketball and it would take like forever for it to reach the basket, but he knew it was going to go straight in. And the same thing happens with martial artists. In that now moment of time, everything slows down so much so that they can see the initiation of movement of their opponent before their opponent even knows that they're initiating movement. Everything slows down completely to the point of super slow motion. But you're still thinking at the same thought speeds that you're thinking currently in regular time. And once you become aware and are completely in that now moment, that's when all of your choices are made. That's when all of your choices are available to you. That's when all of your possibilities open up. Now, at the time of the lawnmower thing, the only thing I wanted to do was move my finger on it. But the script that was playing out was to experience that dilation of time, they call it, so that sometime in a distant now, and I use the word distant very, very loosely, that can be shared with others. Now, the Knot Mark has rambled on for a while now, and I have no idea where I was anymore. So, Mary, did I answer anything for you?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go to, where's my mouse? Dorothy, I see your hand was up again. Let's see if I can turn your microphone on. There we go. No, it's not on now. Dorothy, can you hear me? I'm having trouble unmuting you, Dorothy, so I guess the universe doesn't want you to say anything right now, and we'll continue on. If anyone has any other questions, please raise your hand, and we'll continue on. Now, on this next slide that is loading up on everyone's screen, we are going to dive into origins, which everyone has asked about. Okay, what's the origin of my karma? What's the origin of my script? What's the origin of why my life is the way it is? Now, I'm going to take this particular screen and the information presented on it and actually read it backwards to you. And we're going to start from the bottom and work our way upwards. Now, yesterday we had discussed the six-dimensional nexus reality, which is something that we are all in, but the idea of who we truly are, or I should say not that, but the idea of who we think we are, only gets a glimpse of. Now, within the six-dimensional nexus reality is what I like to call the tapestry of your life. And that tapestry is made up of all of these different materials or yarns of karmic streams that you are interacting with within the life frame or string or yarn that you think of. It is not just you with your karma. It is a cooperative, interactive, and interdynamic weaving of immense complexities of not just your karma, but everything around you is in that weave. From the people that you meet and know and are friends with, to the people you just see on the streets, to the people that you see via television and such, to the reality that you live in, the houses, the homes, the island that you live on, or the city that you live in. All of this is part of the weave that is a six-dimensional nexus reality. And all of this part of the weave of your script. So when we start to look at the origins, we need to understand that we're not going to find an exact origin to any one particular person or any one particular event. We're going to find origins of all the people, events, and circumstances. And that is what we're going to be tracing. That is the string that we'll be following back to source. Because the tapestry of your life is just not yours. The tapestry is life and interconnected and woven together with everything else in it. Now, as we were talking about scripts and karma and predeterminism, we're talking about the surface structures that give us the illusion of some kind of awareness or cognitive intelligence. The illusion of the I-ego self. And we know from all of our studies and all of our lectures and all of our talks that the I-ego self is but an illusion. Because of its inability to, one, understand the reality that it is, and two, that its whole basis or foundation is based on events that have already happened. Now, from this six-dimensional nexus reality, the fabric or cloth or tapestry of the universe and life that you are an intimate part of within the weaves will go down a little bit further from the tapestry into the incandescent universe, the light universe. Now, in the incandescent universe, that of the stars that make up all the universes, that of the stars that make up all the solar systems, it is within the incandescent universe that all of the materials or matter that we think of is created. It is the light energies and all the matter that these light energies create that gives substance to the six-dimensional nexus reality. Everything within the six-dimensional nexus reality is born of the creative properties of stars. When you think of all of the molecules within your body, all of the molecules that make up the earth, all of the materials, all of them are born of stars. All of them are born of light. So with this, we understand now that the six-dimensional nexus reality, its foundation is within light from the incandescent universe. That is the foundation of your being, is light from the incandescent universe. Now, within the incandescent universe of stars, we go down a little bit further. And we come into what I call the dance of possibilities. For within each star is a white black hole. And in that white black hole is a complete dance of possibilities. Everything is possible within the ever-present moment of now. Now there is a physicist out there, his name is Nassim Haramein, who had predicted that any object that has movement, such as a star that has spin, or a universe that has spin, or a planet that has spin, or even a molecule that has spin, has at its center an infinite singularity. It is a source of its energy. It is a source of all of its possibilities. In fact, some of his predictions, one of which was based on the torsion fields of universes, told him that in the center of the Milky Way galaxy is a black hole, or as he called it, a black white hole. And he used the terminology of writing it out as a WHOLE, as a complete, instead of as a place that everything drops into. Now, scientists were skeptical at first about there being a black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, because their theory was that black holes swallowed everything up, and if there was a black hole at the center of the galaxy, our galaxy shouldn't exist anymore. So they aimed the Hubble telescope at the center of the Milky Way galaxy and discovered, yes, there is a black hole at the center of it. And there's an event horizon that everything is circling around, but not everything is drawn in. And they couldn't understand that, but that's okay. Their theory still stood. Now, another part of Nassim's theory was that creation takes place at the event horizon of the black-white hole. So scientists again sent the Hubble telescope pointing back at the center of the universe. And they did see that stars were being born out of the event horizon of the black hole at the center of the universe. But they speculated that, oh yes, because of the energies and the fields and the magnetics and everything that's there is so huge that stars can be born, but they'll be sucked right back into the black hole. But much to their surprise, these stars were being pushed outward, as if being born. Now, this didn't sit correctly with some of the theories that were out there, especially Stephen Hawking's theory about the loss of all information when everything falls into a black hole. And he has had to adjust his theory since then. To say that of all the possibilities there is the possibility that all information is not lost. And that's about as much as he would admit to the matter. Because his theories were completely blown out of the water of what was actually happening at the event horizon of black holes. Now, when you take this dance of possibilities and the infinite singularities that are available to us, and the theories that Nassim has put forth, that not only is it the center of the universe, or as I would say, the macroverse, but it goes all the way down to the molecular level of atoms and molecules themselves. They all have spin. They all have within them, at their very centers, that is not measurable in any way whatsoever, a black-white hole. This is a source of the tremendous energies you see when an atom is split open. When you split an atom open, you have light. But because of the way we split it open in our poor technologies at the time, it ends up as a huge explosion that is very destructive. Now, within each of us are billions upon billions upon billions of atoms, each being within them an infinite singularity. And that infinite singularity being light. Now, as we go down further into the origins from the nexus reality, the fabric of the tapestry of our karmic universe, down into the incandescent universe of light, which is the underlying energy fields of creation, to the dance of possibilities within the infinite singularities within each of the stars, we come to the fabric of God's intent. Now, you can use the word God, you can use the word source, you can use the word universe, anything you like to use, it doesn't matter. But basically, we're going into the fabric of God's intent. Of how everything is working out within the tapestry of who you really are. Now, when you compare this to determinism, on the surface, it seems paradoxical and, what's that word I'm trying to think of? Not just paradoxical, but they tend to cancel each other out. But that is only a surface perception. And that's when we were talking about the ideas of decoherence, of all of these signals that are all happening at the same time. But in the appearances of our I-ego self and our measurements of our equipment that we have, it seems to cancel each other out and become not measurable. And yet all of those waveforms, or the fabric, as I call it, of God's intent are still there. And what do I mean by fabric? Within the dance of possibilities, within the infinite singularities of all there is, from the stars down to the atoms themselves, are these filaments of light. And each of these filaments of light are both God and God's intent. And that intent that underlies the dance of possibilities is just that. The creation and creation and creation of life and possibilities in all forms whatsoever. Now these filaments themselves are so tiny that they're not going to be measurable. And each intent is filled with an infinite number of the filaments themselves. And all of it is filled, as we step a further level upwards or deeper into this, with resonant joy. It is an energy field that is God, joy. That energy frequency within all the intents. Now, we can go into the intents a little further and give them a little bit more definition, if you will, and give more analogies into it. And this was one of the pictures that was placed in my consciousness to be related to the attendees of today's webinar. And in this picture was a vast, vast, vast plane of white light energy, not visible in any sense of the word, and yet it was there. And within this vast plane that extended out in all directions, visible yet not visible at the same time, were all of these golden threads. And each of these golden threads were different intentions of God. And as I looked closer and closer at each of these filaments, and I use the word filament because it was such tiny, 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 tiny things of immense, immense power. There was a what if, and you can fill in the blank. And each what if would resonate with other what ifs to form a thicker filament. And these thicker filaments would resonate with other thicker filaments and form even thicker filaments. And because there was an infinite amount of energy and an infinite amount of what-ifs, these filaments came into forming the fabric in the joy of creation, the resonant joy that forms the fabric of God's intent. And if we take the next final step back to the origin of it all, we step back into the scalar light wave, which is God, which is source, which is not measurable, not understandable, not comprehensible, not anything that we can describe within this concept or idea of consciousness. It is beyond all of that. Now we can see from this particular ride that we have been going down that we are intimately connected to and are God in all of the possibilities, in all of the different layers upon layers upon layers of light. Now I see that you have your hand up, Ellen. Let me go ahead and turn on your microphone as soon as I find my mouse. There you go. Your microphone is on, Ellen. Go ahead.
No, I didn't have a question yet. I mean, I do, but okay. God's intent. Was there one intent, like the creation of joy, so that is what we could experience?
Joy wasn't created. Joy is. It has no underlying event that creates it. It just is. Happiness is something else, but joy itself is just the joy of being. There isn't anything that predates it or creates it. It's just part of the energy field that you are. Joy arises out of nothing, is what I've been read and told and understand completely. It's just there in the background. It's always in the background.
Because it is God.
Because it is you. Joy is that laughter at the universe, with the universe, over all of it that is happening at the same time. Is that smile that comes to your face when you look at a subject that you just find that brings joy into your heart. It just opens it all up. And you can see it everywhere. But your question was, Ellen?
I'm still kind of toying with the word intent. Like, it seems to me like when there is an intention or an intent, there's an end result. And so, what is that end result of God's intention?
You are. And there is no true end result because the intention is to always expand and create and experience who you truly are. Scientists know for a fact that they had thought that our universe, because there was the theory of the Big Bang, there must be the theory of the Big Crunch, that at one point in the expansion of the universe it's going to stop expanding and come back upon itself and go back into the Big Crunch, so to speak. Now I'm going to turn your microphone off for a second, Alan. It has now been proven through measurements from the telescopes of Hubble and others that the universe, or I should say the Milky Way, is expanding and shows no sign of ever having entropy or slowing down and coming back into that big crunch where everything is back to squeeze into a black hole, so to speak. So now scientists are going, okay, what's going on? It seems that the universe is expanding faster and faster and faster. It's not slowing down at all. And then when they look into the stars themselves, they see other universes and other universes and other universes, to the point that there seems to be, from what we can see so far, no end to it. There's no end to the amount of universes, to the amount of the what-ifs that God's intention or God's intent is playing out. There's no end, and that's one of those things that the I-ego self cannot understand, because the I-ego self cannot understand infinity, be it be the macroscopic infinity, which is the universes, to the microscopic infinities, which is the universes of the small. The fabric of the six-dimensional nexus reality is God's intent. All of this dance of possibility is God's intent. The incandescent universe, the light that all is God's intent. And underlying all of it is that joy of creation, that joy of being. And its basis is within the scalar light wave of who we truly are. Now I can feel myself as I'm talking, and it's not me doing it, it's just being done, that my voice is getting softer and softer and softer. And I know, because of what I was told yesterday, that it is because who you really are wants you to listen closely to it, to bring your attention to it as sharply as possible, which is really cool. Now with that, we're come to the halfway point of today's webinar. Now, if you have any other questions, we'll go ahead and open the microphones for you. Hopefully I've answered some of your questions, Ellen. We'll be diving into this some more after we come back from our break, but I see your hand is up. Allison, your microphone is now on. Go ahead.
No question, just a comment that if everyone could see these golden filaments, who would need drugs?
Exactly. It's really cool to play with. I've been playing with it quite a while now. And the filaments themselves are interconnected to everything. Everything glows of light. As I told people, I don't see people, I see light. I don't see people, I see God. I see these filaments. I see beyond, because the filaments themselves are so tiny that it's hard to even describe them other than as a filament. But everything that you're doing, everything that you have worked with, from the codices to the Reiki symbols to the acupuncture, all of it is all tied together within that golden light filaments of who you truly are. Interconnected and not separate and woven into the fabrics of everything that is. Which gives me chicken skin to talk about.
Very deep.
It's very cool. We live in a very interesting paradigm. So thank you for your comment, Allison. Dorothy, I see that your hand was up. Did you have a comment? Or is your microphone still not working? Yeah, I don't seem to be able to turn your microphone on and off, Dorothy. You might have to re-log in or plug it back in and test it out after we come back from the break. Now I'm going to intuitively turn on your microphone, Linda, as I'm just told to. And I know that your head
You are.
I know that your head is swimming with information and energy fields, but I'm told to just open the microphone and see what God has to tell us.
I've been studying tons of quantum physics and Buddhism in the last few months, and I can even go deeper with this. So everything you're saying is very cool.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, we're just playing with the surface parts as much as possible, not to overwhelm you, because it tells you all of this in all of these different religions when you know where to look. And once you know where to look, it's everywhere. It's obvious.
Yes.
You can't, take one step without tripping on it.
It's been fun. So this was just something scripted that had to happen.
Exactly. Thank you, Linda, for that comment.
Thank you, Mark.
Mary, I'm told to open up your microphone.
Well, there was a couple things, actually. The first time when you first started talking about the fact that the number of what-ifs was infinite, my mechanical brain said, no, there's got to be a number. But maybe we just don't know what it is because it's God and it's so large, so we don't want to talk about numbers. It's just infinite because we can't get our minds around it.
We cannot wrap our minds around it. It's like trying to...
My other question, too, about the chords is that, is it also not dynamically changing all the time, too?
On the what was... I missed the first part of your question.
The different filament lights of each person, and I'm imagining that they're getting brighter as different illuminations occur, and so I almost see it like a sphere of interconnected lights, but it's like a really great light show.
Mm-hmm. It's an extremely great light show, and it's expanding, always expanding. That's that idea of movement that people misunderstand as ascension or trying to become more than that they are, when in actuality, they already are more than what they are. They just don't see it from the I-ego self. And when you see it from who you truly are, then you truly radiate that light field to everyone around you and become that which is always expansion, always expanding, always creating, always the life and joy of being.
But that still goes back to the original part of the script, does it not?
The script itself is what the idea of the I-ego self is seeing, where it has no choice, because in that particular illusion, everything has already happened. And that has been told to us in philosophies and religions and now in science.
So I guess that's the paradox, is that we were told everything is predestined and done, and yet it's still expanding and creating.
The paradox is all of it is predestined and done for the I-ego self. It is not for who you truly are.
Okay. Where does Akashic Records fit in then? Is that part of the ego self?
The Akashic Records fall into the place of the I-ego self for reading. Okay. But it's also the Akashic Records is everything is within the fabric of the six-dimensional nexus reality, or the tapestry. All information is recorded there. All information that ever was and ever will be is recorded there, and is interacted within the possibilities of the filaments of who you truly are, the light energies of who you truly are, and accessible to who you truly are. It is not accessible to who you think you are.
Suddenly that fifth slide, the paradox of being, is starting to make a little more sense.
It's a complete paradox when we talk of all of these things, because parts of who you think you are, or the parts of the physical form, will never get it. And once you're able to let go of that idea that there's something to get, and the idea and understand that your I-ego self will never get it, and that it doesn't matter, that who you truly are is this dance. You have amazing light, joy, and freedom to just be. And that translates into a energy field about you that cannot help but change the reactions of everyone around you.
And it can never be done through the I-ego self.
Nope. You can't get there when you've already have had everything recorded and been done. There's no choice in the I-ego self because it just doesn't have the right capabilities, right equipment, and everything that it does or thinks it does has already happened. And that's why I say that the I-ego self has no choice. Even the idea of choices have already happened. Even your thoughts have already happened. Minimum of 350 milliseconds ago. So the thoughts themselves that are being brought into the conscious awareness or cognitive awareness of the I-ego self have already happened also. As one master said it, you don't think thoughts, they just come to you out of nowhere. And that's part of the karmic script that is playing out within the physical form of the I-ego self.
Okay. Well, this karmic script is starting to make a little more sense.
That's what we're here for.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. Now, with that said, I see that no one else has hands up, so we'll go ahead and take our mid-break. It's now 11:43. We'll take 10 minutes and be back here at about 11:53. So with that, I'm going to turn my microphone off and get some water and see if I can keep my voice going for another hour and a half. And I'll see you guys back in about 10 minutes. Thank you. I'm back a little bit early, but I'll go ahead and make sure that everybody is here. If you are back and at your computer screens and ready to begin, please raise your hand so I can see that. And if you're not back, then you didn't hear me. Therefore, I shall use this time to open your microphones as your hands come up to make sure that you're here. I can see you're back, and Mary, your microphone is open.
I'm here.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions while we're waiting for everybody else to get back?
I had one, but it's gone. It's out of my mind. But just a comment. I realized that when I was getting sick, it was because I was trying to solve this through my mind. And it was so mentally blowing my mind out that I was getting myself, that my mind just had to shut my body down. So hopefully I've learned after 2 times.
Well, whatever it's supposed to be is supposed to be. And there's no
actually, one question I do have, because it's become clear to me that the paradox is that I'm running this script and then, you know, there's in the moment of now. So I guess one of the things I'd love to hear you talk more about is getting to that moment of now. And for me, there's still like these crossover moments. You know, I have had those moments where there's been time stands still, and then I go back to being in this karmic stream. So it's like there's cracks, and the light comes through the cracks.
Well, there's less Mary.
Yes.
But the light that you speak of is always there.
Just the filters are smaller.
Just that Mary's not there so much. And if you give me a second, I need to get my daughter from start jiggling my door to my office, as you can hear in the back. Yeah, now she's been gotten away. She doesn't like when the door to my office is closed, and therefore she'll pound on it and go, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, come out." Said, no, this is my time that we are working. Now let's go ahead and check. I'll turn your mic off now for a second, Mary, and check if everybody else is here. Allison, are you here? Not quite yet.
I'm here, thank you.
Okay. Dorothy, I'm having a problem with your microphone. I'm not sure why. I'm unable to turn it on. Something's going on with your microphone, so I can't get you on and ask any questions. Ellen, I know you're back. Your hand is up, right? You're here? Microphone is on.
Yes, I'm here, Mark.
Okay, and just need to double check with Linda. Your microphone on. Are you back?
Present, here now.
Present and here. Okay. Let's go ahead and begin the next section of the webinar. Now, the current image that you're looking at is a prelude of what we're going to be working with in the next part of the seminar. And as you can see, in this case for Mary, I shall describe it for you, is the image of a man or a woman. It's just a form that is intertwined with the galaxy that is behind it. In fact, the galaxy flows over and into the person that is sitting there. And it's ever expansive. Now with that, we shall move into the second half of the webinar. The synergistic tapestry, which is what we were all leading to with the first half of the webinar. We shall start with a quote by Sri Ramana Mahari. There is no greater mystery than this, that being the reality yourself, you seek to gain reality. You think there is something binding your reality, and that something must be destroyed before the reality is freed. This is ridiculous. A day will dawn when you will laugh at all your efforts. What is there to realize? The real is always as it is. Now, within that statement is the light of who you truly are. And you really do have a dawn of laughter. Now I'll give you two examples. And I think you may have heard one of these before. But one of my employees, when she first started working for me, her first question was, I asked her, oh, what would you like? And she says, I want to be enlightened. And I said, okay, let's start playing. And we played for a year amongst all the different concepts and ideas and belief systems that she had. And by the end of the first year, she was extremely frustrated because she had pretty much memorized everything that I had told her. And then she moved back to the mainland for about a year and moved back to Kauai. And again, she started working for us part-time. And we began the play again. And at one point, she reached out and talked to me and a friend of mine who had dropped and says, I know everything you've ever said, Mark, and I can repeat it verbatim. And my response was, you don't know it. And she goes, I do know it, I do know it. I said, no, you don't. You don't know it. There's no way to know it. And she got angrier and angrier. Not at me, but just angry at the idea of not knowing it. Or her not knowing it. And also very frustrated. It was about a week later that she walked into my office. And she said, Mark, I give up. And in that instant, that now moment, the surrendering to all that is, she completely dropped and woke up. And I looked up and I saw her as she was saying this, and she completely disappeared. Everything went white. Every light went white. The whole room went white. And she wasn't there anymore. And I started laughing my head off. And a split the second later, in the now of all of it, she was back. But it wasn't her anymore. And she started to laugh her head off. And her first comments were, "Oh my God, this is too simple. This is too easy. This is ridiculous." I said, "Yes, it is. Isn't it funny?" And she started laughing, and she laughed for the next 2 weeks straight. She literally laughed at all of her efforts that had gone into the search of trying to awaken, or trying to be enlightened, or trying to be self-realized. She laughed her head off over all of it. Now today, we are lucky to have with us several people that have had this experience. Now I'm going to bring them on and put you guys on the spot, because that's what God does. He puts people on the spot. He throws you on the deep end of the pool and goes, "Here, swim, it'll be fun." And I experience that every single day. In fact, as you are listening to this webinar, understand that everything that you are seeing on the screen is all that I have to work with. I don't have notes. I don't have other text that I'm reading from. Everything being said within this webinar is straight from the now. And sometimes I have no idea what I'm even going to say or talk about, which makes it even more funny, according to me and God. Now with that, I'm going to bring Allison up and give her a chance to explain and tell us of her awakening moment. In fact, God said, "No, I can't bring Allison up. I have no control over her microphone." That is very strange. Okay, Allison, you're off the hook. God put you off the hook. Next person to put on the hook. No, I can't do that either. This is very strange. I am having technical difficulties at this time that I am unable to recording this. That was the strangest thing I ever saw happen. Everything went kablooey. I couldn't work anyone's microphone. I'm not sure if you heard anything from my side of it, but everything just went blank on my side, where I couldn't hear or talk or have any audio whatsoever. And I guess, the universe wanted to take a longer break than I thought it wanted to. But in that case, pretty much everyone's back except for one person, which I sent an email to. Hopefully she'll come back and log back in a few minutes. In that case, we shall continue on. Oops, that's not the quite right screen. Previous screen. Because of the technical difficulties we went through when we restarted the webinar about 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago actually, this was the screen that we were on, and I'm going to start it back up with this screen. Now, as you are looking at this, it is particularly relevant to everything that we were talking about, on how the universe is intertwined with the being of who we truly are. As you can see from the imagery, that the person that is in the seated position is the universe. and connected completely with the universe, and that its very center is the very center of the universe itself. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and move on into the second half of the webinar. Synergistic tapestry. There is no greater mystery than this, that being the reality yourself, you seek to gain reality. You think there is something binding your reality, and that something must be destroyed before the reality is freed. This is ridiculous. A day will dawn when you will laugh at all your efforts. What is there to realize? The real is always as it is. Sri Ramana Mahari. Now, the quote that I've just read really tells you the story of self-realization and the thinking behind the idea of achieving self-realization. Now, since I have someone that is intimately tied to this particular story, and I'm going to try this again because I am scripted to, even though it caused the whole system to crash, I'm going to bring Allison on board to give us a tiny story about when she dropped. Now, Allison, I'm going to click on your microphone, and hopefully the whole system will not crash again. So please don't crash the system, Allison. Your microphone is now on. We're still here.
Okay. So I was getting ready for a trip to San Francisco, and I had, as usual before a trip, lots of things to do. And besides packing, one of the local stores was selling my Reiki water formulas, so I think I probably had 5 or 6 or 7 formulas to get ready. And over the years, I had gotten input on how I should prepare myself before I do the Reiki waters. You know, so one friend suggested I do some yoga, and another friend suggested I do some qigong and do some chanting. And so it took about an hour to prepare, supposedly prepare myself before I actually sat down and put my hands on the water. And so I did the same thing. I sat down and I put my hands on the water, and I started, you know, with one of the formulas. I had my list of acupuncture points, and I was going through the points, and all of a sudden the thought came into my head that I wasn't doing anything, that it was just being done. And I thought, this is the way everything should be. And I don't know exactly what happened after that, but it sure felt good. So now I just sit down, and I don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of chanting yoga and qigong. And the process goes a lot faster.
Cool, very cool. There's another story that I know you related to me about when you were in San Francisco during that trip and there was a car accident.
Yes. So I was driving my friend's almost new BMW 325 with her dog in the back seat that I was taking care of. And I was at I was in the North Bay of San Francisco, and we were, all stopped at a stoplight. And the man behind me decided to start going when no one else had, so he bumped the car, which was enough of a jolt to, actually, my neck started hurting. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting because I have to act as if I'm, really upset about this accident when I really wasn't. And so I got out of the car and acted upset and went through the whole thing of, calling the police and all of this. And I could see myself acting. And it just, the whole script played out. And of course, everything worked out okay, but it was, a big inconvenience for the owner of the car.
But that's one of the things I mean by the freedom that you have when you know that there's a script playing out. It's not you doing anything. It's actually, as Allison had told me at one point, she knew that she had to go out and play this part for the other driver. Isn't that so, Allison?
Right.
So it's really cool how all of this happened. And at that time that had happened, Allison had just dropped, though she wasn't sure that she had just dropped. But she knew that everything was different. And with that said, we'll move on to the next slide. Lifting the veil. We'll go over in the second half of the webinar the Endless Stream Codec about foundation and balance, the Manifest Destiny Codec, Life's Path, Life's Grace, and the Crystalline Intent Codec, Thy Will Be Done. Now, the Endless Stream Codec, we went over it yesterday with a lot of different uses that you can. Now, the codec itself is a synergy of energy and form in a frequency format that gives you access to the infinite energies of the life streams and also the dynamic light memory contained within the tapestry of who you truly are. Now, what do I mean by dynamic light memory? Everything that has ever happened is recorded within the now moment of the dynamic light tapestry. There is no such thing as anything being lost. Memories are not lost, people are not lost, things are not lost. It is all there within the fabric of the tapestry of who you truly are, and accessible. Now, with the Endless Stream Codec, we have access to all of it. It is our golden filament of access. In a way that will not be explainable or understandable within the context of the I-ego self. Now, to give you an idea of that kind of access, I'll use the old story of the apple seed. And this can apply to any seed. Within the seed of the apple is all that there is. Within the seed contains all of the information for that seed to transform itself into an apple tree. Within the seed of the apple is the information of making more apples. Within the seed of the apple is the seed of all other apples in an infinite, expansive universe. The seed itself is intimately tied to the dynamic light memory of the universe, of who it really is, without the I-ego self, or the illusion of an I-ego self, getting in the way. The apple seed and its infinite possibilities and potentials just is. Now, regardless of whether or not that particular seed's karma is to bear fruit or not, the information of what it truly is all there and accessible to the seed. And the same thing goes for you. Regardless of the ideas of the I-ego self and what the constraints upon the form of karma and determinism, the seeds of who you truly are and the access to all of that light energy that you are is always present. And that access is into the infinite singularity's source, or God. And the endless stream itself, as a codec, is a resonant representation that resonates with all of the access codes that are already in you, bypassing the ideas of the I-ego self and the ideas of a materiality and a serial existence. Now with that, we'll move on to the next slide. The endless stream codec. This codec is the basis of our energy fields. The earth, cube or square, and air, prana or octahedron, which is a pyramid upon a pyramid, is the best shape that you can use to describe that, form the perfect synthesis and grounded base for just about everything. The endless stream codec restructures energy to its original intent of equilibrium and is excellent for aligning energy to a more harmonious vibration. Now with this particular codec itself and the energies present within it and the resonance present within it, it is like having that same access that the seed has to all the energy that it needs in order to become that which it shall become. And the infinity of the microscope to the infinity of the macroscope. In the timelessness of the now moment, all of that information is just there and accessible. And the same goes for all of us. All of that information, all of that energy is accessible. So as we look at the Endless Stream Codec itself, you'll see squares, you'll see pyramids, you'll see triangles, you'll see circles, you'll see discs. And the pattern of the infinity symbol or the lemonscape. Now within this two-dimensional resonant image is the holographic image of this floating outwards and becoming a true six-dimensional image within the light streams of your true consciousness and awareness. And your true consciousness and awareness of the now and the fabric of the universe, the symbology and the sacred geometry of this floats off the screen itself and becomes cubes and octahedrons. And then the whole thing starts to spin in and of itself, with energy fields moving along all of the lines of coherence. Now I'd like to take the moment to welcome Linda back. I see you're back. And don't worry if you missed anything, it is being recorded and you'll have access to the recordings. Now I'm going to open up the microphones now for questions. Now Dorothy, I see your hand was raised. If it was the computer, what the heck, the universe said open up your mic.
Just a computer.
Yeah, I know it, but the universe said open your mic. It's instantly...
It's actually behaving today. You know, it hasn't been too bad.
Yes, it has been behaving, but like I said, I didn't have a choice in the matter.
Anyways, I'm finding it interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. So if there aren't any more questions, we'll move on to the next phase or next codex. Manifest Destiny Codec. Now this is the one that we'll be playing in and what we're talking about more so within the scripts and karma and determinism. Now here we'll be discussing the infinite destinies, a script for all seasons, it's not personal, and your true meaning. Now before we begin our discussion on this, there's always another quote that will set the tone. Infinite destiny. The true human being is the meaning of the universe. He is a dancing star. He is the exploding singularity with infinite possibilities. David Zindel. Now with that said, and as we look at the codec itself, you will see that there is forms within forms within forms within forms. And this is just a small portion of the infinite destinies that are happening at the same time. As we had discussed in Origins, the intent of of why you are here is exactly that. That's why you are here. It's a paradox. And with the Manifest Destiny Codec, not only can you access the paradoxical nature of your being here, so to speak, you can access the paradoxical nature of anything being here. With infinite destinies, when one is in that now moment, where one truly has choice, your fate opens up like a night sky of stars. Because as who you truly are has chosen all of it. You can choose any of it. Now the other saying I had before we got to this screen was a script for all seasons. Now we know that the idea of the I-ego self, or our cognitive awareness, does not really make any choices whatsoever. It just becomes aware of the choices that have already been made. Now the choices that are available to who you truly are is infinite. Or as I would say to people, that you have already chosen all paths. You are just aware of only one of them. The idea of who you think you are is only aware of one of the destinies that you are currently walking. Who you truly are is walking all of them. So the script that you have written for yourself is much, much larger than what you think. And the choices available to who you truly are is much, much larger than you think. A lot of it just depends on the viewpoint that you're using to read the particular script. When you're coming from the viewpoint of who you think you are, all of it is already pre-written and pre-done. When you come from it from the now moment of who you truly are, as the author of the script, as the intent of the script, as God's light, there is where you have the ability to not just understand all of it, but to actually choose and exercise the freedom that you truly are. Now, one of the things that comes up within the karma and scripts of people's lives is the aspect of the I-ego self, and also the aspect of taking things personally. That person was rude to me. That person was bad to me. That person put me down. That person lifted me up. No matter the instance or the criteria on which that event happened, whether good or bad, none of it is personal. It just is. It is the event within the karmic stream of your form, and is not personal. Even if the event itself becomes a interaction of personal attack upon you, it is still not personal. It is the playing out of the stream of events that are happening. The only person that takes it personal is the I-ego self. And I'll give you several examples of this. When a tree in a forest falls over and crashes to the ground, does the earth take it personally and saying, I was hurt, or I was damaged, or I was attacked, or I was fill in the blank? Or is it an event that just happened? When the birth of a child occurs, it can be taken and seen in many different ways. Again, that birth itself is not personal to anyone involved within it. It is the event itself. There are many emotions tied to it, but it's not personal to anyone involved other than the ties and karma to all that are tied within that particular script. Now, what is trying to be presented here in the idea that it's not personal is the idea that none of it being the scripts themselves that are happening within the framework of your life stream is a judgment or attack upon your being. Your destiny or your fate or your karma just is. There is no personality or person behind it. There is nobody judging it. There is nobody pulling the strings, so to speak. It just is. And if you really want to get deep into it, the actual person that are pulling the strings is who you truly are. With the Manifest Destiny Codec, you are able to see who the true puppet master is, and that being your true self. Now, when we talk of helping others who seem to be needing help or needing counseling or needing healing in any way whatsoever. And as Dorothy mentioned, part of what she does is a motivational speaker of using positive thinking to change one's thinking patterns and change one's life. That goes into the underlying intent of who you truly are, which is service to life, service to the light of all others around you, because you're not separate from them. It is scripted, and you have chosen that part within the scripts of all these other peoples that you're working with to be of service. What changes when working with others, when it is the true reality of who you truly are coming through, when it is God that is doing, when it is God's intent in service that is doing, that changes not only the reaction of the people that you are working with, but also changes them in a fundamental way of opening the possibilities of who they truly are. And thinning the veils that they have themselves put over themselves. So everything you are doing, such as Dorothy doing her positive thinking guidance and counseling, is exactly what she's supposed to be doing. And when she is not doing it, or I should say, when Dorothy is not doing it, and who Dorothy truly is as God, as light, the reaction to and the results of those events and those help and those services are completely different. And it is completely noticeable by those who are receiving such services. And when you look at anyone that does any type of healing work, any type of counseling work, the very best of them know it's not them doing it at all, that it's God's will being done, or the source's will being done, or source, or universe. Doesn't matter what words or terms you use. There is an intimate understanding underneath the surfaces of what that is. And words need not even be used. And your true meaning when you digest this, therefore bypassing the I-ego self and all of its belief systems and all of its filters, is that your true meaning of why you are here is exactly that. You are here because that's why you're here, which is a paradox in itself. The whole meaning of why you are here is exactly that, to be here. And your being here is in service to who you truly are, in service to God's intent. The illusion is the idea of that I-ego self. And when using the Manifest Destiny codec, you're able to see beyond the predestined or karmic destiny that's encoded within the form and see the possibilities that underlie the form itself. For in reality, you are possibilities. You just don't know it. Now with that, I'll open up the floor for questions again. And if you don't have any questions, we'll move on. I see your hand is up again, Dorothy. I'll turn it off and see if it comes back up again. Otherwise, you may have a question and I might not have clicked on you. I'm not sure if you have a question or not, Dorothy, because your hand keeps waving at me, but that's just the universe.
Well, I didn't, but I was writing down stuff as it's not going up on my screen. It's just going up on your screen, but I just have a comment, or maybe it is a question. So why do we have all of these events? What do they give us? Why did we write these programs of these events, particularly the ones that involve personal relationships where we take it personal but we're not supposed to?
Well, it's, again, we're coming from the idea of separation. The very question itself has that why in it. And the why implies separation. The why implies I don't understand these separate events that are happening to me, when you're not separate from the event itself. You're not separate from the relationships you're having. You're not separate from the karma that is ongoing. And within separation becomes confusion and misunderstanding, because now you've taken something that can't be separated, and in the illusion of the I-ego self made it separate.
Okay, that's a deep one. I'll contemplate on that.
Remember, I don't want you to understand anything.
I know. Hey, you got me. I don't understand a thing.
Exactly. You're free. You don't need to understand anything. That's what makes it so funny. The understanding of any of this is not there. It's not going to be understood. And yet...
So we just really witness the events.
We are the events.
So we just witness the events and...
It's not a witness. You are the event. Witness is, again, bringing in that idea of separation. There's somebody that is outside viewing the event that happens itself. You don't view the event. You are the event itself.
Okay, another great mystery. Thank you, Mark.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm here to confuse.
You're doing a good job.
I try very hard. I should say God does.
I'm sure it's all going to come together.
It always does. Okay. Mary, I see you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes. I'm going to go off of what Dorothy was saying. So, I understand witness. So, witness versus being conscious of the event?
There isn't a consciousness of the event. There is the event itself. When you bring into the ideas of consciousness or awareness or witnessing, you've brought into the idea of there is a person that is watching the event happen, and then there is the event happening itself.
Okay,
when in actuality, there's only the event. And that you are the...
Some of the things that I've been listening to about, especially in meditation, where you're meditating on and just being the awareness. So you're sort of letting everything be, but sort of observing what's going on without reacting to it. But that's still, I guess, coming from the ego self, and it's not coming from the event.
Exactly.
So that meditation isn't taking me any closer to awakening either.
Oh, it never did.
Oh, good.
If you look at the historical record of the Buddha himself, who had mastered everything there is to master, including meditation, and once he had mastered that, and he asked his guru, where do we go from here? And the guru tells the Buddha, well, you've gone further than I've ever done. I want you to take over my school and teach us how to go beyond where you've gone. And the Buddha replied, but there's no answer here. And he moved on. He realized that he was not going to get any answers from doing of meditation. In fact, I'm going to bring Allison back on for a second so that Allison can share her story about meditation. Allison, your mic is now on, and I'm going to preface this with one of the first times that me and Allison had a conversation. And I'll tell it from my side, and I'll let Allison tell it from her side. Now, she has been shopping in our store for a little while at that point, and at one time that she had stopped by, she had mentioned that she's been doing Vipassana meditation to deal with the stress of dealing with her mom, and that she was promised a certain outcome. And Allison, I'll let you take over from here.
So a friend of mine had taken the 10-day course, 10 Days of Silence, to learn the Vipassana technique. And I think it was on the first day they said, if you do this 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening, you will become enlightened. And because I was interested in becoming enlightened, I took the course, and for 2 years, I had the luxury of not working full-time, so I had the time to meditate 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. Then I was living in San Francisco then I came back to Hawaii, and I, kind of stopped doing it and then started talking to Mark. By the way, after 2 years, I did not become enlightened.
Well, when Allison told me that, my question back to her was, did it work? And she replied, no. And that's when I told her it doesn't work. And that's when she got upset.
Very upset.
Yes, I remember. He was like, what do you mean it doesn't work? And from there, we opened up the gateways of looking at all of this doing from the idea of who Allison thought she was. And we began our play. So with that, I'm turning your microphone off now, Allison. You can see how, and I told Allison this, then why was I doing meditation? I said, for fun. And she goes, for fun? That wasn't fun. I said, sure it was. You did it for 2 years, didn't you? And she really didn't have a answer back to that one. And then I told her you didn't have a choice in the matter also. And I'm turning your mic back on, Allison, because I'm told to. Which even further created this idea of infuriation, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, when I told you didn't have a choice in the matter of your meditations.
Of course. Nobody else had ever told me that. Yeah,
people are much into the idea of doing and caught in the illusion of who they think they are. And so was Allison. And she had been promised enlightenment after 2 years. And now she laughs at the whole thing because she truly just isn't there and can laugh at a lot of all of it. When you start to look at it from the point of view of who you truly are and the freedom that you have to laugh at it. And I still have some of her friends that are caught in that same illusion of the idea of who they think they are. And they are so caught into it that they define themselves by their practice. I have practiced meditation for 20 years now. That's my defined definition of myself, and I'm going to get to enlightenment. In fact, I've already had some enlightenment moments, and I hope to have more as I practice more. Even though they've been doing it for 20 years without much results, other than what they claim to be experiences of enlightenment. Now, my reply to that is you do not experience enlightenment or self-awareness or realization. You are that. It is the underlying nature of who you truly are. It is the foundation of who you really are. It is what you stand upon as your true reality. Now with that, we'll move on to the next codec. Crystalline intent. Now I know we're running a little bit late because of that half-an-hour delay in the crash of my system, so hopefully everyone can stay and finish this up with me. Now, crystalline intent codec, free will or something else, illusion of choice, presence of presence, and Tao. Now, before we dive into this, we will look at some of these. In Christianity, God's will be done. It is mentioned in Matthew 6:9, in John 5:30, in John 6:38, in Luke 22:39, and many other places. I just ran out of room to put it all in. It is in the prayer that Jesus gave to his disciples. And I'm trying to remember the prayer off the top of my head that this is in. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. One of the main prayers within Christianity, God's will be done, thy will be done. Now in Hinduism, we have Om Namah Shivaya, which almost literally translates Shivaya's will be done, or God's will be done. Within the texts, the historical texts of the Mahabharata and the Gita, or as I think it's pronounced, the Bhagavad Gita, both talk about one's intent and one's nature and God's will being done. At one point within the Gita, one of the heroes is depressed because he has to fight his own family, his own cousins, his own uncles, his own grandfather, which is on the other side of the battlefield, and he doesn't want to fight them. And he is reminded of the fact that you do not have a choice in the matter. This was your fate. This was your destiny. And that the battle is going to take place regardless of what you believe or not believe. And that this is God's will. And you are the instrument of God's will. And there's many, many other places within the Hindu pantheon of this being so. Within Buddhism and Taoism, we have Wei Wu Wei, or the action of a non-action, or the action that is the natural action of things occurring naturally. Underlying that is the idea that everything is set to occur in a natural way by the heavens or by God. And in Buddhism, as we read earlier about karma, of all of those actions being done, it's not you doing them. Your very form is made up of all of these actions, but they're not you. And it was very interesting to find that even in Islam, pronounces all human dramas are the will of God. In fact, the word Islam itself can be translated to serve God or in service of God. So let's go on to the next screen and begin our exploration of crystalline intent. Now, free will or something else. From everything that we have discussed today in this particular webinar, there has been a preponderance of evidence showing us that who we think we are does not have free will. And yet, underlying this illusionary construct of who we think we are is the light of who we truly are. Which is beyond what we would even consider free will. When you look at free will or choice, or the illusion of choice, if you have made all of the choices and have chosen everything, is there choice? Who you truly are has chosen all of it. Every action that can take place, every event that can take place, every possible path that can be followed has been followed. That is who you truly are. Complete freedom. And always expanding. Always growing, always going forth in creation and life and joy. In complete awareness of everything. With the codec itself, one is able to penetrate into the very recesses of both the idea and illusions that are cast forth by the I-ego self, and the underlying light that makes available the possibilities of casting forth any intent. As Einstein said, you can will whatever you like, but you cannot will your will. And that corresponds directly to the experiment that the professor in San Francisco had said. You can will whatever you like, but you cannot will your will. And this matter was, they were willing what they thought of the movement of their wrist, but the will itself had already happened. Now, depending on how you use this codec via the idea of who you think you are, or via the idea of who you truly, not even an idea, or via the vehicle of who you truly are, you'll be able to access different levels of God's intent, or light's intent, or the intentions that are running through the stream of your being. And you can follow those strings backwards or forwards. Like following a path. Now, we know for a fact that intentions that we bring into our thoughts, which we know we're not bringing into our thoughts now, they're just thoughts that appear out of nowhere before we are even aware of them. But those intentions themselves are part of the karmic stream, of part of the script. When one wants to intend true change, one needs to rewrite the script. And the only person that can rewrite the script is who you truly are, as God. What you can use this codec for, in this sense, okay, sorry about that, but God's a jokester, so he likes to put these images in my head. And he said, you can use this image, the codec, the Crystalline Intent Codec, as an email service to God of who you truly are. And email yourself your intent and whatever it is, or your intentions. Your intentions to be prosperous, your intentions to be healthy, your intentions to be whatever it is that you feel that you need to be. And email them to who you truly are via the Crystalline Intent Codec. Like I said, God is a comedian. That is just one of the ways of using it. It is an energy form, and as you can see by the triangular shapes of all of it, triangles within the sacred geometries represent fire, represent that action of both creation and unmaking, or making and unmaking. I don't like to use the word destruction because nothing is actually destroyed. Everything just changes form. And you can take the illusional intent from the idea of who you think you are and transform it and send it to who you truly are. In a format that will give who you truly are access to that which is. Now, the access I'm talking of is all of the different illusions that you have about what you should or should not be. And when those intents are made manifest into the crystalline stream of the Crystalline Intent Codec, what will be returned is the understanding of what your truly intentions are. What will be returned is who you truly are, giving you instructions on how to wake up to all of the possibilities that you are. The intentions themselves are so small and so tiny compared to what you really and truly are, that they are truly not even very much noticeable to who you truly are. They are like sands on a beach, each of these tiny intentions. When in reality, all of them have already come true. You just don't see them. You don't know the richness that you have. You don't know the happiness that you have. You don't know the magic and wonder and grandeur that you truly are. The other aspect of this is being present, or presence of presence. Now, the wording of that sentence sounds a little paradoxical, because, you're always present when you're present. But your form may be present, but who you think you are may not be and be off somewhere else. And we all know of that wandering of the mind. When one is working with understanding intent or creating intent or focusing on the manifestation of intent, one needs to be present. Your presence of presence. But if instead you are focusing on a outcome, or you're focusing on the reason why you're bringing that intent up, or it's some past consequence which you want to correct, you're not present. You're not present in your presence. You're not there. You're in the past or you're in the future. And when you're in the past or in the future, you're no longer in the now. And that is exactly what presence of presence is that being in the now. It is in the now that you can make intent or create intent and make it happen. Only in the now. When I talk of using the codec as an email system to God, I mean it as you are being present, your presence in the presence of actually making that email. You're in the now, creating that in a now situation. And we bring up the Tao and bring that into the picture also. It is not so much, according to the Tao, as your intent that is being done. It is just the natural course of things that are going to be done anyway, regardless of how you either go with it or struggle against it. The course of events will happen in a certain way. You can either struggle with that course, or you can go with that flow. Now, the illustration from one of the old Tao stories was a master came to a village, and he was walking down a certain street. And when he came to a certain part of it, it was blocked by an ox that has sat down in front of its cart, and there was no way around it. It took up the whole street. Now, when the villagers saw the master come down their block, they were all happy because they thought he could do something about the ox blocking the street. Now, the street that the master was on was leading to a temple he wished to go to. Now, upon seeing the ox in the street and being approached by the villagers, the master turned down a side street to get to where he was going. And everybody else who was waiting for the ox to be moved in frustration were going, where's he going? We got to get rid of the ox first before we can move forward. Now, what that particular story is illustrating is the movement or the natural movement of going with the flow. Water always seeks the lowest ground and will go around whatever obstacles that come across without taking any of that personally. It will just go around. And the same thing happens within our lives, that all these obstacles may or may not show up in one form or another, and we have the choice to, beat against it or go around. Now, the choices that you have as the I-Ego self are limited to the script that is written. To the awakened master, he's not longer limited by any scripts. So part of the Crystalline Intent Codec will give you those instances of clarity into the intentions of all there is around you that is happening at the same time. When you start to question, why did this happen, or why did this person do this, you can look at them through the prism of the crystalline intent and understand that their intentions may not be exactly what you think they are. In fact, what you are thinking is scripted. What the intentions are completely different. You may be thinking as a driver cuts you off in the road that, oh, he's a terrible driver, he must be a bad person, he must be, looking for an accident or looking for trouble, or any number of different things. Those are scripts playing in your head. Those are programs playing in your head. The driver himself may be in a rush to get home because his wife needs to get to the hospital or a kid is sick. You don't know, unless you can see beyond the scripts themselves and go into the actual underlying connectivity that you have with everything. And once you have established that underlying connectivity to the actual intent within all that is, one loses all of those connections or belief systems within the thought form patterns that are playing out within the scripts. The thoughts that come up, they just come up and you go, okay, there was a thought, oh, there it goes. And you have no connection whatsoever to it in a personal way that the I-ego self would. So crystalline intent is not so much as creating or manifesting your intent. Crystalline intent is actually understanding your true being of why you are here, why everything is here, why everything is happening the way it is happening, and who it is or whose intention that is actually being done. And until you can understand who you truly are, as Einstein said, you can will anything you want, you just can't will your will. Until you understand who you truly are, you can will anything you want. When you understand who you truly are, you are beyond that. And anything is possible. Again, Crystalline Intent Codec is pointing to the underlying fact that you are totally free and that anything is possible. Now with that, I will open up the microphones for questions and see if anyone has any comments or questions. Dorothy, the universe likes you a lot, so it always raises your hand. So your microphone is on.
Oh,
now.
I understand. Thank you for this explanation. This makes, well, maybe I'm supposed to still be confused, but it makes sense to me now.
Oh, good. Confusion and sense is perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, don't thank me. I didn't do any of it. You're confusing yourself. That's what makes it so much fun.
It is getting to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. Okay, Dorothy, I see your hand is up now. Mary, your microphone is now on. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mark. I really love all the things you said. This really helped with the explanation. But I'm not quite there yet in the not Mary stage. So is the Mary stage person, would just meditating with that help open up to the clarity of the intention, even though I'm not there yet?
There's no there to get there. You already are there. And meditation can't get you any nearer.
Okay, so looking if this is going to do what for me if I don't feel, if I'm not
Looking
married?
at this will slowly, and I mean the term very loosely because time doesn't exist either, looking at this will bring the understanding of that it's not you doing any of it. And when that understanding crystallizes, the you that you think you are falls away. When all of these codices, any of them, or anything from the light of being, any of this, anything that I have said, anything that had happened to you, crystallizes into that knowledge of not knowing any of this and not knowing and knowing that it's not you doing any of this, all of the ideas and veils of who you think you are as Mary falls away. Mary doesn't stop existing. The form that is Mary, the karma that is Mary, the stream that is the physical form of Mary does not fall away. But the associations made by the I-ego self and the I-ego self itself falls away. There's no longer that association of Mary doing something, Mary not having this or Mary not having that, Mary having an experience of almost enlightenment, or not Mary is here and Mary is here, and there's the two of it, and sometimes I'm not Mary and sometimes I'm Mary. All of that falls away to the point that it just is. You are always that not Mary person. There is the form and stream of Mary within the karmic condition that is going to now finish up its karma and all of the scripts that is written itself into all other people's lives. But the driver of the form itself is no longer Mary. It never was. We know that for a fact now just by some of the psychological testing that has gone on within the past couple of years, which I haven't touched on too much yet. But that being said, who you truly are is the one in the driver's seat. Who you truly are is always there, has always been there. Everything that you are doing currently is scripted. You don't have a choice. Just as Allison had no choice in the matter to do a 10-day retreat where she had to keep silent. Allison had no choice in the matter of doing Vipassana meditation for 2 hours a day for the next 2 years. Allison had no choice in the matter of any of that. It was part of her karma, part of her script that she had to play out. The choice and the only choice in the matter she had is to understand she had no choice in the matter. And when that understanding came in the form of a meeting of a store owner at Life's Treasures, she was both very upset, but also in the background of that being upset, of being angry, of being, nobody told me this before, then why am I doing any of this? Behind all of that, there was a light of freedom that was lit. There was a light of freedom saying, there's something else. There's something else, and it resonates with me. I don't know what it is, but it's there. And I know it's there, and I can reach it. It's there, I can reach it. Just that I don't know how. And through the interactions that she had with her not self, because it wasn't Mark doing anything, and it wasn't not Mark doing anything, it was just Allison interacting with not Allison. The realization came out of the blue that it wasn't her doing any of it. And that is that crystalline structure of who you truly are shining forth through everything. And then she understood, oh, that was just karma. It had to happen that way, and started laughing. There's no longer a doer behind the doing. So to say whether or not anything that you're doing is going to help you to awaken or help you to become any of it more relaxed, more peaceful, more conscious? The answer is actually no. It doesn't really help in the way you're thinking of it helping. It can make you more relaxed. It can make you more peaceful. It can do all of those things within the script. But in actuality, it's not leading you to where you think you are progressing to. Because the area that you're progressing to is already there. You already are there. There's nowhere to progress to. In fact, you are so unbelievably expansive and always expanding as light, as God, that it's not possible to explain it within the construct of words or even the construct of imagery. The only way that you can explain it is in a one-to-one energy exchange of who Mary thinks she is and who Mary truly is.
Thank you. That was beautifully explained.
I'm glad it's being recorded because I couldn't tell you that again.
I'm glad you recorded it too. And so I also feel scripted to ask, because you didn't really talk about the first codec too much, is because that one talks about unlocking the possibilities and the foundations. Using that with this one, with the crystalline intent, will that help unlock to see the intention?
It can energize that field of wanting to see the intention. It can energize the energy of who you truly are, or I should say balance the energies of who you truly are with the illusions of who you truly are not. Part of what the... And are you talking about the Manifest Destiny Codec, or are you talking about the Endless Stream Codec?
No, actually neither. I was talking about the endless possibilities. I'm sorry, key of possibilities.
Oh, the key of possibilities. That's for tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Yes, you are.
All right. Well, then save my question for tomorrow. But then going back to the other codices that we worked with today. So what you started to say was that it brings...
I was using, for example, the Endless Stream Codec of bringing that energy field and the equilibrium field within your energies of who you think you truly are, or I mean who you think you are, the illusion of self, by equalizing it and its energy field is much better able to visualize and interpenetrate into the crystalline core of the crystalline intent. Because the illusion itself is so unbalanced in its form and in its processes, the Endless Stream Codec balances it all out and brings decoherence of it. And decoherence meaning within the field of the idea of self shows you that it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me either, but that's the way the script played it out for you.
Thanks, Mark.
Remember, I truly understand that I'm here to confuse. And that within the confusion of the idea of who you think you are comes the awareness that that's not you. Comes the awareness that this can't be you. Comes the awareness of who you truly are within the state of being all that is. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure how it works because Mark doesn't know anything. But I have seen this confusion lead to that awakening aha. That awakening, oh, there isn't anything to get. No wonder I was so confused. I was trying to get something that I can't get. And exactly that is so. You cannot get this. You cannot understand it. You cannot realize it. You can't any of it. It's what you truly are. And when you understand completely and surrender to the ideas that there's something that I cannot get, there's something that Mary will never get. And it's okay because I am beyond that. I am more than that. I am unbelievably blessed in who and what I truly am. The aha moment. Thank you, Mary, for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Now, if we have any other questions, please raise your hand. Dorothy, I see your question is up, but I don't see you raising your hand. There it is again. Is it your computer waving again, or is it you?
No, the computer's playing. Sorry, Mark.
No problem. No sorries necessary. Okay, let's continue on as we start to summarize today's webinar. The present alone represents that which we are, in an apparent world in which we are not, since therein we are appearances, phenomena only. We ourselves neither exist nor do we not exist, neither existing samsarically nor not existing nirvanically. We are no thing in any way in which we can know ourselves, but as the present. Terence Gray. Now with that, and the conversation and question and answer that we just had with Mary, I think is the perfect note to end today's webinar. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for participating today. If anyone has any other questions, please raise your hand and I'll get to them. If not, I'd like to say thank you all very much for having fun with me today and spending your afternoons or evenings with me. And hopefully tomorrow we shall not have any more technical difficulties. With that said, I see I have